The Dhammapada, read by Chris Allen. 1. Twins. Mind is the forerunner of all actions. All deeds are led by mind, created by mind. If one speaks or acts with a corrupt mind, suffering follows, as the wheel follows the hoof of an ox pulling a cart. Mind is the forerunner of all actions. All deeds are led by mind, created by mind. If one speaks or acts with a serene mind, happiness follows, as surely as one's shadow. He abused me, mistreated me, defeated me, robbed me. Harboring such thoughts keeps hatred alive. He abused me, mistreated me, defeated me, robbed me. Releasing such thoughts banishes hatred for all time. Animosity does not eradicate animosity. Only by loving kindness is animosity dissolved. This law is ancient and eternal. There are those who are aware that they are always facing death. Knowing this, they put aside all quarrels. The one who lives for sensation, indulgent in eating, lazy and lacking in energy, the tempter Mara breaks, just as the wind breaks a frail tree. The one who lives mindfully, senses under control, moderate in eating, devout, energetic, cannot be overthrown by Mara, just as the wind cannot shake a rocky mountain. The monk's robe does not in itself render one free from stain. If the one who wears that robe is lacking in self-control and honesty, he is unworthy of such a robe. Only one who is free from stain, well-disciplined, honest, and endowed with self-control is worthy of the monk's robe. Those who fail to distinguish the non-essential from the essential and the essential from the non-essential will, in feeding on wrong thoughts, fail to attain the essential. On the other hand, those who correctly perceive the essential as essential and the non-essential as non-essential will, in feeding on right thoughts, attain the essential. As rain pours through badly thatched houses, so does desire penetrate the undeveloped mind. As rain fails to pour through a well-thatched house, so does desire fail to penetrate the well-developed mind. For the doer of evil there is only grief, here as well as hereafter. In both states he experiences grief, seeing his own unwholesome acts. For the doer of good deeds there is rejoicing, here as well as hereafter. Joy and more joy are his, as he sees his own right action. The doer of evil reaps suffering, here and hereafter, in both states remembering, I have committed evil. Not only here, but hereafter, he experiences more suffering, because he has gone to a state of suffering. The doer of good deeds reaps happiness, here and hereafter, in both states remembering, I have done good deeds. And there is no more joy, because he has gone to a blissful state. A careless person, quoting much of the scriptural text but not living it, cannot share the abundance of the holy life, just as the cowherd counting other people's cattle cannot taste the milk or ghee. Reciting a small portion of the scriptures, but putting it diligently into practice, letting go of passion, aggression, and confusion, revering the truth with a clear mind, and not clinging to anything, here or hereafter, brings the harvest of the holy life. 2. Mindfulness. Mindfulness is the path to immortality. Negligence is the path to death. The vigilant never die, whereas the negligent are the living dead. With this understanding, the wise, having developed a high degree of mindfulness, rejoice in mindfulness, delighting in the domain of the noble ones. These awakened ones, dedicated to meditation, striving actively and vigorously, attain nirvana, the ultimate security. The fame and fortune of the man who is vigorous, aware, unsullied, acting with consideration and restraint becomes ever-growing. The wise man, by vigor, mindfulness, restraint, and self-control, creates for himself an island which no flood can submerge. The foolish, the unwise, surrender themselves to negligence, whereas the wise man protects mindfulness as his most valuable possession. Don't lose yourself in negligence. Don't lose yourself in sensuality, for it is the mindful and meditative man who will experience supreme happiness. When the enlightened man frees himself from careless behavior through mindfulness, free of sorrow, he gazes on the sorrowing masses, as one on the mountaintop gazes on the plain below. The mindful person among the mindless, the aware person among the unaware, surpasses the rest with his wisdom, like a superb racehorse outstripping an old worn-out horse. By mindfulness did the Bhagavat, Lord of two realms, reach the position of authority among the gods. So vigilance is ever praised, and negligence ever disdained. A seeker concentrating on mindfulness advances like a fire, consuming the chains of bondage, both great and small. A monk or layperson rejoicing in mindfulness, seeing the danger of negligence, cannot fall backwards, and is close to nirvana. 3. Mind. Just as an arrowsmith shapes an arrow to perfection with fire, so does the wise man shape his mind, which is fickle, unsteady, vulnerable, and erratic. Like a fish taken from the safety of its watery home and cast upon the dry land, so does this mind flutter due to the lure of the tempter. Therefore, one should leave the dominion of Mara. How good it is to rein the mind, which is unruly, capricious, rushing wherever it pleases. The mind so harnessed will bring one happiness. A wise man should pay attention to his mind, which is very difficult to perceive. It is extremely subtle and wanders wherever it pleases. The mind, well guarded and controlled, will bring him happiness. One who keeps a rein on the wandering mind, which strays far and wide, alone, bodiless, will be freed from the tyranny of the tempter. A man of fickle mind will never attain wisdom to its fullest, since he is ignorant of the Dhamma and has wavering faith. The heart of the fully conscious man is fearless. He has freed his mind of lust and anger. He has transcended both good and evil. Observe his body, as fragile as an earthen vase. Build a mind as solid as a fortified city. Then confront Mara with the weapon of insight, and proceeding without attachment, guard what you have already conquered. Certainly, before long, this body will lie on the ground, lifeless and unconscious, cast aside like a useless log. A mind out of control will do more harm than two angry men engaged in combat. A well-dedicated mind creates more well-being than the wholesome actions of parents toward their children. 4. Flowers. Who can truly see this earth, this body, this world of human beings, as well as the realm of gods? Who is able to distill the wisdom of the Dhamma as skillfully as a designer of garlands selects choice flowers? Sekha, a trainee of the first stage of perfection, is able to grasp this earth, the human world, the dwellings of the unhappy ones, as well as the realm of the gods. He can bring forth the shining truth of the Dhamma, even as a skillful gardener selects choice flowers. See this body, as fragile and transient as foam. Know that it is as insubstantial as foam, and thereby destroy the tempter's flowery arrows, and put yourself beyond death's grasp. Just as a raging flood sweeps away a sleeping village, so does death claim a man of distracted mind, as he continually seeks more and more of life's fleeting pleasures. Death drowns the unsatisfied man, whose restless mind clutches for greater and greater pleasures. A monk should dwell and act in the village, like a bee extracting honey from the flower, but leaving the color and fragrance intact. Pay no attention to harsh words uttered by others. Do not be concerned with what others have or have not done. Observe your own actions and inactions. Like a beautiful, brightly colored flower without fragrance is the well-spoken word without action. Like a beautiful, brightly colored flower full of fragrance is the well-spoken word and the deed that matches the word. A man born to this world should do many good deeds, as a garland maker makes garlands from a heap of flowers. The scent of flowers is carried no farther than the wind allows, neither the sandalwood, togger, nor jasmine. But the fragrance of the deeds of good men spreads to the ends of the earth, in all directions, regardless of the wind. The aroma of sandalwood, togger, lotus, or vasiki is excellent. Superior to these is the fragrance of right action, right speech, and right way of earning one's living. The scent of togger and sandalwood may be barely detectable, whereas the fragrance of the virtuous reaches the highest levels, both among gods and men. Mara, the tempter, can never find where the enlightened ones are, for they live mindfully and in perfect freedom through perfect knowledge. Just as a sweet-smelling lotus blooms beside the highway upon a heap of filth, so does the disciple of the perfect Buddha rise above those bound blindly to the limitations of the world. 5. The Fool. Long is the night to the sleepless. Long is the road to the weary traveler. Long is the cycle of rebirths to the unwise, who do not know the truth. Should a traveler fail to find a companion equal or better, rather than suffer the company of a fool, he should resolutely walk alone. I have children, I have wealth. These are the empty claims of an unwise man. If he cannot call himself his own, how can he then claim children and wealth as his own? To the extent that a fool knows his foolishness, he may be deemed wise. A fool who considers himself wise is indeed a fool. A fool may associate with a wise man throughout his life and remain untouched by his wisdom, even as a spoon cannot taste the flavor of soup. On the other hand, an aware man, in a moment's meeting, can learn from a wise man, even as the tongue tastes the flavor of soup. The unwise man, lacking understanding, behaves as if he were his own worst enemy, committing evil deeds that produce bitter fruit. It is unwise to do things that bring regret and require repentance, to cause suffering for oneself and a weeping and tearful face. It is wise to do things which do not require repentance, but bring joy and fulfillment, happiness and delight. Until he feels the effect, the fool rejoices in his evil deed. When the action reaches fruition, the fool harvests nothing but grief. Though the fool may practice asceticism, eating a speck of food on the tip of a blade of grass, he is not worth 1/16 of the Arahant, the knower of the Dhamma. An evil deed does not produce its results at once. It smolders slowly, like a fire covered by ashes, and finally consumes its doer, the fool. The things a fool gains amounts to nothing. Unwholesome acts cannot bring him wholesome results. What a fool hungers for is false fame, authority, power over others, and generous offerings. He seeks recognition as a doer, a wielder of power, a knower of right and wrong. His craving and pride are insatiable. There is a path that leads to worldly gain. Another road leads to nirvana. Let the seeker, the disciple of Buddha, embracing seclusion, take the path to wisdom and enlightenment. 6. The wise. If someone sees an intelligent person who is skillfully able to point out shortcomings and give suitable reproof, let him cherish such a revealer of hidden treasures. Only good can come from such an association. Let the wise one guide, correct, and deter others from what is base and vile. He will be treasured by the good and spurned by the evil. Do not choose bad friends. Do not choose persons of low habits. Select good friends. Be discriminating. Choose the best. Whoever drinks deeply of Dhamma lives happily with a peaceful mind. The wise man rejoices in the Dhamma taught by the holy ones. Irrigators contain the flowing waters. Arrowsmiths fashion arrows. Carpenters shape wood to their design. Wise men mold their characters. As a solid rock stands firm in the wind, even so is a wise man unmoved by praise or blame. As a deep lake remains still and clear, so do wise men, listening to the teachings, attain a serene mind. The good certainly cling to nothing. They do not talk aimlessly, concerned with personal gains. The wise, the saintly, whether experiencing comfort or discomfort, show neither elation nor depression. Not for one's own or another's gain should one commit an evil deed. Regardless of the desire for children, wealth, or kingdom, or any other kind of success, one should remain virtuous, wise, and righteous. The few cross over to the far shore. The many merely run back and forth fruitlessly along the side of the stream. But only those who follow the carefully taught law can cross to the other shore. Beyond the grasp of death, so hard to overcome. Let the wise man shun the cauldron of confusion and proceed on the path of light. Let him leave the comfort of home, forsaking sensual pleasures, freeing himself from all obstacles, delighting in seclusion, not an ordinary man's choice, and devote himself to cleansing the blemishes of the mind. Those who have carefully cultivated their minds, in tune with the elements of enlightenment, who without grasping, delight in detachment, cleansed of all corruption and therefore shining brightly, send forth brilliant light. 7. The Arahant. There is no burning for him who has completed the journey, who is free of sorrows and all else, and who has broken off all chains. The mindful put forth great effort. They do not remain content in the household life, but leave their homes behind, just as swans leave a muddy lake. Arahants do not hoard. They take a right view of eating. Focused on deliverance and void, they leave no trace, like the path of birds in the sky. He who is free from obsessions, eating simply, clear-headed, and focused on liberation, like a migrating bird, leaves no trace of a track in the sky. Even the gods delight in the presence of one who has freed himself from pride and mental obsessions, who has his senses under control, like horses trained by an expert trainer. Done with the round of rebirths, he is as accepting as the earth, as firm as a doorpost, placid as a pond free of mud, and dutiful. Whoever has reached a state of freedom through perfect wisdom, peaceful and unshakable, is non-violent in his mind, his speech, his action. Whoever is in touch with the infinite, free of attachment, desireless, is the highest among men. Delightful is the place where the saints dwell, be it village or forest, cavern or open field. Delightful are forests where more worldly men find no joy. Being free of the pull of desire, saints who seek no worldly pleasures find delight in such places. 8. Thousands. A single wise word bringing peace to the listener is worth more than 1,000 speeches full of empty words. A single verse full of meaning bringing peace to the listener is worth more than 1,000 verses full of empty words. One may recite 100 verses full of vain descriptions, but a single verse bringing peace to the listener is worth far more. One may conquer 1,000,000 men in a single battle. However, the greatest and best warrior conquers himself. Conquest of oneself is the greatest victory of all. Neither a god nor a heavenly musician, nor a mischievous angel of the highest of the 6 heavenly abodes, the Paranamita heaven, where sensual pleasures prevail, can deprive the self-vanquished, restrained person of victory. The honor paid to the one who has achieved self-mastery for one single instant is worth more than monthly offerings of 1,000 pieces of gold. Honoring the one who has achieved self-mastery for one single instant is worth more than living in the forest, tending the sacred fire for 100 years. Making offerings for glory and recognition is not 1/4 as worthy as honoring the upright. Whoever shows reverence and respect for the aged is rewarded 4-fold, with long life, beauty, happiness, and strength. Even a single day of a life lived virtuously and meditatively is worth more than 100 years lived wantonly and without discipline. A single day's life of a wise and contemplative man is worth more than 100 years lived wantonly and without discipline. A single day's life of one who puts out great effort is better than a life of 100 years lived in idleness and sluggishness. A single day's life lived by a man who grasps the impermanence of all conditioned things is worth more than 100 years lived in blindness and ignorance. A single day's life of one who sees the deathless state is worth more than 100 years lived without perceiving it. A single day's life of one who sees the truth is worth more than 100 years of not seeing the truth. 9. Evil. Do not lose a moment of doing good. Protect your mind from evil. Whoever neglects doing good is inviting addiction to evil. If a man has mistakenly committed an evil deed, let him not repeat it. Let him not be addicted to evil, for it is the amassing of evil that brings misery. On the other hand, if a man does good, let him do it repeatedly. Let him put his heart into it, for the accumulation of good brings blessings. Even an evildoer feels happy before his negative actions reach fruition. However, when the evil ripens, he will have a bountiful harvest of evil results. A good man sees what is unwholesome before his good deeds reach fruition. However, when the good ripens, he will have a bountiful harvest of good results. Don't underestimate evil, saying, "It can't happen to me." As a pot slowly fills up with water, drop by drop, so does the fool, little by little, become full of evil. Don't underestimate good, saying, "It can't happen to me." Water falling, drop by drop, will fill even a large pot. Likewise, the wise man, accumulating good, little by little, becomes goodness itself. One should shun all evil, as a merchant with treasure and a small caravan avoids a dangerous road, or as a man loving life shuns poison. If a man has a hand free of wounds, he can take poison in his hand. The poison cannot penetrate the hand that is free of wounds. Likewise, a man is not guilty when he acts with no evil intention. If someone harms an innocent person, one pure and free of guilt, evil results will fall upon the doer, like fine dust thrown against the wind. Some are reborn in a mother's womb. The evildoers are bound to miserable states. The doers of good are reborn to happy states. Those free of any stain go on to perfect peace. There is no place in the world, neither the sky, the sea, nor in mountain crevices, where an evildoer can hide, safe from the consequences of his action. There is no place in the world, neither the sky, the sea, nor in mountain crevices, where one can escape the inevitability of death. 10. The rod. Everybody fears being struck by a rod. Everybody fears death. Therefore, knowing this, feeling for others as for yourself, do not kill others or cause others to kill. Everybody fears being struck by a rod, life being dear to all. Therefore, knowing this, feeling for others as for yourself, do not kill or cause others to kill. If one, pursuing happiness, strikes living beings who also strive to live happily with a rod or other instrument, he will reap an unwholesome harvest. If one pursues his own happiness, while causing no harm to other living beings who also strive to live happily, he will reap a wholesome harvest. Avoid harsh speech. Angry words backfire upon the speaker. By making yourself as still as a cracked cymbal, not retaliating, you achieve nirvana. As a cowherd leads the cattle to pasture, so do old age and death drive the life of all beings. The fool, committing evil deeds, realizes not their nature. The fool, due to his evil deeds, suffers as if scorched by fire. He who inflicts pain on the innocent comes to one of 10 calamities: pain, loss, injury, illness, insanity, danger from rulers, frightening accusations, loss of loved ones, loss of wealth. One of these will he experience, or fire will destroy his house. After the destruction of his body, the same foolish man will go to an unhappy state. Though he does penance through nakedness with tangled hair, covering his body with mud, fasting, rubbing himself with ash, and crouching in a posture of humility, none of these rites can purify a man who has not freed himself of doubt. Regardless of attire or adornment, the guiltless one, calm, self-restrained, chaste, and resolute, refraining totally from hurting living beings, is the Brahmin, the recluse, the monk. It is the rare being who is restrained by self-direction, who does not invite reproof, as a good horse does not invite the whip. Be like a good horse, touched gently by the whip, the horse moves forward with full power and energy. Have an abundance of confidence, good conduct, effort, concentration. Be aware and attentive. Put aside this great mass of suffering. Those who would irrigate the land, bringing the water wherever they choose. Arrowsmiths fashion arrows. Carpenters shape wood. The virtuous mold themselves. 11. Old age. Can there be joy and laughter when always the world is ablaze? Enshrouded in darkness, should you not seek a light? Look at the body adorned, a mass of wounds draped upon a heap of bones. A sickly thing, this subject of sensual thoughts, neither permanent nor enduring. The body wears out, a nest of disease, fragile, disintegrating, ending in death. What delight is there in seeing the bleached bones, like gourds thrown away, dried and scattered in the autumn sun? A citadel is this structure of bones, blood and flesh, within which dwell decay, death, conceit, and malice. The royal chariots surely come to decay, just as the body too comes to decay. But the shining truth and loving kindness live on, so speak the virtuous to the virtuous. The unwise person grows large in body. Though he becomes large physically, his mind remains small. How many lives, how many rounds of birth have I experienced without finding the builder of this house? Now I see you, O builder. All your rafters are broken. Your ridgepole is shattered. Never again need you build a house for me. My mind has gone beyond the transitory, the conditioned, and has achieved the extinction of craving. Those who do not find their way to a higher life, or who fail to earn wealth during their youth, look back with regret in their old age, like large old waiting birds beside a dried pond. Having attained neither a higher life of the seeker, nor having acquired wealth and power in their youth, they lie like spent arrows that have missed their mark, bewailing their misspent past. 12. Self. If a man holds himself in high esteem, let him be vigilant, a careful observer day and night during any of the 3 watches of life. First, one must establish one's own high moral principles, then preach to others. There can be no gap in credibility and no disgrace. Let one mold himself in accordance with the precepts he teaches. Very difficult it is to restrain oneself. Only the self shelters the self. What shelter could there be outside the self? With oneself thoroughly tamed, one gains a shelter rare. As a diamond bores a softer gem, so does the evil committed by a fool crush the doer. As a strangling vine chokes a tree, so does a person's unwholesome action destroy him, to the delight of his enemy. Unwholesome action, hurting self, comes easily. Wholesome action, healing self, takes effort. A foolish man clings to wrong views, mocks the teachings of the righteous. Such a person reaps what he sows, inviting ruin and destruction, like the fruit-bearing bamboo tree. By oneself is evil done. By oneself is one made impure. By oneself is evil undone. By oneself is one made pure. Each one is responsible for purity and impurity. No one can cleanse another. One should not neglect one's own moral good for the sake of another's. Learn first before teaching others. Let each one embrace his own truth and devote himself to its fulfillment. 13. The world. Do not follow low practices. Do not live carelessly. Do not hold wrong views. Do not prolong the suffering of the world. Lift yourself up. Be attentive. Act virtuously. One who does good deeds lives happily, both in this life and the life to come. Act righteously. Refuse to do otherwise. One who follows this path lives happily, both in this life and the life to come. Perceive the world as a bubble. Perceive the world as a mirage. If you see the world in this way, you render the Lord of Death powerless. Look at the body as a royal chariot, to which the ignorant cling, while the wise let go. Whoever moves from carelessness to vigilance lights up the world, like the moon that emerges from a cloud. Whoever overcomes his unwholesome deeds with wholesome actions illuminates the world like the moon emerging from a cloud. There is blindness all around. Only very few can see. Many are like birds trapped in a net. Only few escape and achieve liberation. Swans fly in the sky. Those possessed of psychic powers glide through the air. The wise, conquering self, proceed to nirvana. A man who violates even one spiritual law, who is dishonest and telling lies, unconcerned with the life hereafter, there is no evil that one dares not do. Those closed off from generosity do not enter the realm of gods. Fools do not praise generosity. The wise rejoice in generosity, and by that will be happy after death. Better than the sole rulership over the world, better than going to heaven, better than lordship over all the worlds, is the fruition of the stream winner's path. 14. The Buddha. The Buddha's conquest is beyond all conquests. The Buddha's development cannot be measured in worldly terms, whose range of vision is infinite, who has no feet of clay. On what feet can anyone deign to lead the Buddha? The Buddha is one who has crushed the bonds of desire, the lures that lead one astray. On what feet would you have the Buddha move? For he has no feet. Even gods cherish the vigilant Buddhas, meditative, wise, peaceful, and free of passions. It is difficult to be born human. It is difficult to conduct life as a human being. Rare is the opportunity to hear the Dhamma. Even more rare is the appearance of a Buddha. To shun all evil, to do good, to purify one's heart. This is the teaching of the Buddhas. Patience that is enduring is the best discipline. Nirvana, say the Buddhas, is the highest goal. Whoever hurts another is not a monk. Whoever insults another is not a renunciate. Right speech, harmlessness, restraint, according to the monk's discipline. Moderation in food, at peace in remoteness and solitude, devotion to higher meditation. All this is the teaching of the Buddhas. A shower of gold pieces cannot satisfy craving. Sensual pleasures bring little sweetness, cause much suffering. The disciple of the Buddha finds joy in the extinction of desire. Threatened with danger, many go for refuge to gardens, sacred trees, mountains, and forests. But such is not safe refuge. Such is not the supreme refuge. By means of such a refuge, no one is able to free himself from all these sufferings. However, if one turns to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha for refuge, realize the Four Noble Truths, dukkha, dukkha's cause, the cessation of dukkha, and the Noble Eightfold Path that leads to the cessation of dukkha, this indeed is the safe refuge. This is the supreme refuge. Turning to this refuge, one frees oneself from all suffering. A supreme being is hard to find. He is not born in many places, but wherever he is born, the family of such a wise one prospers. Blessed is the appearance of the Buddhas. Blessed is the teaching of the Dhamma. Blessed is the unity of the order. Blessed is the disciplined life of its followers. Whosoever honors those worthy of honor, the Buddhas or their disciples who have overcome the obstacles to development and have rid themselves of grief and lamentation, who have attained inner peace and have become fearless, His merit cannot be measured by anyone as this much or that much. 15. Happiness. Truly, we dwell in happiness. Others hate, but we do not. Surrounded by those who hate, we live free from hatred. Truly, we dwell in happiness. Others are sick, but we are not. Surrounded by sick people, we live free from sickness. Truly, we dwell in happiness, free from struggles while others struggle. Surrounded by struggling people, we live free from conflict. Truly, we dwell in happiness. Having no obstacle at all, we shall feed on joy like radiant gods. Victory produces hostility, for the defeated ones live in grief. Releasing both victory and defeat, the tranquil minds dwell in happiness. There is no fire like lust, no evil like hatred. There are no disasters equal to the khandhas. There is no happiness greater than the peace of nirvana. Hunger is the most severe bodily disease. Conditioned things are the worst calamity. When we see this clearly, we achieve nirvana, the ultimate bliss. Health is the highest prize. Contentment is the greatest wealth. A loyal friend is the best relative. Nirvana is the supreme bliss. Having tasted the sweetness of solitude and tranquility, one becomes free of sorrow and sin, while fully savoring the nectar of the joy of spiritual excellence. It is good to see the holy ones. To live with them is always happiness. Not to see the low-charactered is always happiness. Therefore, like the moon following its ordained course, let each one follow a good person, wise, steadfast, loyal, and holy. 16. The pleasant. When anyone mistakenly pursues only what is pleasant, avoiding the true path, forgetting their true purpose, attached to the senses, when anyone sees another on the true path, they will experience their loss and be full of reproach. Avoid attachment to both what is pleasant and what is unpleasant. Losing the pleasant causes grief. Dwelling on the unpleasant also causes grief. Do not cling to the pleasant. Let it pass, so that the separation will not diminish you. Clinging to what is dear brings sorrow. Clinging to what is dear brings fear. To one who is entirely free from endearment, there is no sorrow or fear. Sorrow springs from affection. Fear springs from affection. To loosen those bonds is to be free from sorrow and fear. Sorrow springs from indulgence in sensual pleasures. Fear springs from indulgence in sensual pleasures. Whoever is free from such indulgence knows neither sorrow nor fear. Sorrow springs from preoccupation with lustful pleasures. Fear springs from preoccupation with lustful pleasures. Whoever is free from such preoccupation knows neither sorrow nor fear. Sorrow springs from craving. Fear springs from craving. Whoever is free from craving knows neither sorrow nor fear. People cherish the person committed to right action and rich in understanding. That person, knowing the truth, walks steadfastly on the path. The person who reaches the sacred, the inexpressible, who has permeated his mind with it, who is in control of his senses, is one bound upstream. Friends and relatives welcome with joy a loved one returning from abroad after a long absence. In exactly the same way will the fruits of right action welcome the doer as he travels from one life to the next. 17. Anger. Shun anger. Let go of pride. Break out of every shackle. Whoever is not tied to possessions, clinging neither to body nor mind, is never in bondage. Whoever controls his anger is like a true charioteer, in command of the rolling chariot and not just holding on to the reins. Where there is anger, apply loving kindness. Where there is evil, offer good. Where there is stinginess, be generous. Where there are lies, be truthful. Speak the truth. Control anger. Share even from your meager store. These 3 steps lead to the presence of the Shining Ones. The wise ones who do no harm, ever restrained in body, word, and mind, come to the place of peace where they will sorrow no more. The vigilant, who follow the way day and night, who are wholly intent upon nirvana, their mental intoxicants come to an end. This, O Atula, has been going on through the ages. They criticize the silent ones. They criticize the talkative ones. They criticize the moderate ones. There is no one in the world who escapes criticism. There never was and never will be, nor is there now, the wholly criticized or the wholly approved. Whom the discriminating praise as behaving impeccably in life, displaying wisdom, insight, and virtue, who is like a coin of pure gold, he is praised even by Brahma. Avoid rash action. Be restrained in action. Giving up wrong deeds, exercise right action. Avoid rash speech. Be restrained in speech. Giving up wrong speech, exercise right speech. Avoid mental agitation. Be restrained in mind. Giving up wrong thoughts, think good thoughts. Those who practice restraint in body, word, and mind are surely in control of themselves. 18. Blemishes. You are now like a withered leaf, very close to the approaching messenger of death. Although at the point of departure, you have not prepared yourself for the journey. Prepare a refuge for yourself. Work hard, use good judgment. Free of flaws and passions, you shall enter the highest realms. You have reached the end of your time. You stand face to face with death. You have no place to rest upon the road, nor any preparation for the journey. Prepare a refuge for yourself. Work hard, use good judgment. Free of flaws and passions, you need never return to the cycles of birth and death. The wise man, carefully, moment by moment, one by one, eliminates the stains of his mind, as a silversmith separates the dross from the silver. Just as rust produced by iron corrodes the iron, so is the violator of moral law destroyed by his own wrong action. Disconnection from Scripture is learning's taint. Neglect is the taint of houses. Uncared-for beauty withers. Negligence is the taint of one who keeps watch. A woman behaving badly loses her femininity. A giver sharing grudgingly loses his generosity. Deeds done from bad motives remain everlastingly tainted. But there is nothing more tainted than ignorance. Eliminate ignorance, O disciples, and purity follows. Life is easy to live for a shameless man, aggressive, arrogant, intrusive, and corrupt. Life is not easy to live for a modest man, with high values, free from attachment, humble, of right livelihood and clear vision. Whoever in the world takes life, tells lies, steals, commits adultery, is addicted to drinking intoxicating liquors, is digging up his very roots even when alive. Be aware, everyone, that those flawed in their nature have no control of themselves. Do not let greed and anger cause you suffering by holding you in their grasp. Men give for different reasons, such as devotion or appreciation. Whoever finds fault with the food or drink given by others will have no peace, day or night. However, whoever gives up this habit of finding fault with others' offerings will know peace day and night. There is no fire like lust, no vice like hatred, no trap like delusion, and no galloping river like craving. It is easy to see the flaws of others, hard to see one's own. One exposes the flaws of others as one winnows the chaff, yet hides his own faults as a cunning fowler who covers himself. Far from removal and constantly growing are the blemishes of the man who clearly sees and points out the faults of others, but is ever resistant to corrections in himself. There is no path through the air. There is no real monk outside the Eightfold Path. People love their obstacles. Only the enlightened ones transcend them. There is no track through the air. There is no recluse outside this Dhamma. There are no compounded things that are permanent. There is no perturbance in Buddhas. (19) The righteous. He is not righteous who judges a situation impulsively, but whoever distinguishes between right and wrong, that one is righteous. Whoever leads others even-handedly, but not by force, is a guardian of justice and is called righteous. A man is not considered wise because he talks a lot, but he is secure and called wise who is free of hate and does no harm. A man cannot be regarded well-versed in the Dhamma by his rhetoric. However, even with little learning, a man who does not neglect the practice of virtue may be considered well-versed in the Dhamma. Gray hair does not make a man an elder. He is but ripe in age, and may simply be called a foolish, doddering old man. To be considered truly an elder, a man must practice truthfulness, righteousness, harmlessness, restraint, and self-control. Be free of stain and rich in wisdom. Neither good looks nor a glib tongue make a man attractive if he is envious, stingy, and dishonest. However, once he has cut down and rooted out these traits and found wisdom, then can he be called attractive. A shaven head does not make a man a monk if he is still undisciplined and dishonest. How can he be called a monk if he is filled with desire and greed? A man may be called a monk if he is cleansed of evil, large or small, free from unwholesome tendencies. Living simply on alms does not make a man holy if he also behaves badly. He who lives the higher life, full of understanding of the world, but free of its good or evil, that one can be called a holy man. A man cannot be called wise simply because he is silent. Whoever is aware, conscious of what is, choosing wisely, that one can be called a sage. Having discerned both worlds, both the inner and outer life, and having chosen good over evil, a man may be called a sage. If one harms living beings, he cannot be considered noble. Only by exercising harmlessness toward living beings can one be called noble. Not merely by keeping precepts and observances, not yet by scholarly learning, not solely by attaining meditative absorption, not by lying alone do I weave ascetic bliss, not experienced by the worldling. The Bhikku should not rest content until mental intoxicants are fully extinct. 20. The Way. The Eightfold Path is the best of ways. The Four Noble Truths are the best of truths. Freedom from desire is the best of states. Whoever is clear-eyed and wise is the best of men. This is the one and only way. There is no other leading to the purity of vision. Follow this path. This bewilders Mara, the tempter. Following this path, you shall put an end to suffering. Having myself realized the way that can lead to removal of the thorns of defilements, I have shown it to you. You yourself must walk the path. Buddhas only show the way. Those who are meditative, who have gotten on the path, will be free from the bonds of Mara. All conditioned things are subject to change. When one realizes this truth, one feels wearied of these suffering heaps. This is the way of purification. All conditioned things are unsatisfactory. When one realizes this truth, one feels wearied of suffering. This is the way of purification. All things in the world are insubstantial. When one realizes this truth, one feels wearied of suffering. This is the way of purification. The lazy man, weak in mental discipline, indolent, prone to sloth, unproductive, and though young and strong, failing to move at the right time, never finds the road to wisdom. Curb your speech. Restrain your mind. Commit no evil deed. By these means, accomplish the practice of the path made out by the sages. Wisdom is born from meditation. Not to meditate is loss. Know the difference between gain and loss. Make the choice to walk where wisdom grows. Cut down the whole jungle of craving, not just an isolated tree in the forest. The jungle of craving harbors danger. Clear the trees of craving, both strong and weak, and find freedom. As long as there is the least clinging to lustful thoughts, man will remain in mental bondage, like a nursing calf attached to its mother. Cut off the love of ego with your own hands, as you would an autumn lily. Follow the peaceful path leading to nirvana, guided by the one who has walked the path. I shall live here in the rains, there in winter, elsewhere in summer, muses the fool, not aware of the nearness of death. Death carries the unaware man away, while he is still busily acquiring children and animals, much as a rampaging flood engulfs a sleeping village. When death comes, neither children, father, or other loved ones can offer refuge. Aware of this, the wise behave well. Don't postpone right action, but clear the path to nirvana. 21. Miscellany. If by giving up lesser comforts, a greater happiness is to be found, the wise should give up the lesser comforts in view of the greater happiness. How foolish to seek comfort through someone else's pain. There is no escape from the trap of animosity. The indolent and negligent accrue unwholesome mind states by doing what should not be done and failing to do what should be done. Unwholesome mind states disappear among those who are mindful of the nature of the body, who stop doing what is right not to be done and fulfill what needs to be done. Having killed the mother, craving, and father, conceit. Having killed 2 priestly kings, 2 wrong views. Having destroyed the tiger-infested road, doubt, the 5th one, the noble one proceeds free of dangers. He has vanquished the hindrances, lust, anger, sloth, and torpor, skepticism and distraction of mind, and he emerges the noble one unscathed. The disciples of Gautama are truly awake, day and night, focusing on the Buddha. The disciples of Gautama are truly awake, day and night, thinking of the Dhamma. The disciples of Gautama are truly awake, day and night, meditating on the specific virtues of the members of the Sangha. The disciples of Gautama are truly awake, day and night, concentrating on the nature of their physical bodies. The disciples of Gautama are truly awake, day and night, joyfully practicing nonviolence. The disciples of Gautama are truly awake, day and night, setting their minds joyfully on meditation. It is hard to renounce the world. It is hard and troublesome to live the household life. It is painful to live with those who are in a different way of life. In these ways is the wayfarer beset with troubles. End your suffering. Cease being a wayfarer. A person devoted to his faith, disciplined, illustrious, and prosperous, is honored wherever he chooses to live. Good people are visible from the distance, like the Himalaya mountains. Bad people become invisible, like an arrow shot in the night. Sit alone and sleep alone. Walk alone enthusiastically. Tame yourself alone. Enjoy the life of seclusion in the forest. 22. State of woe. The liar is headed for sorrow. The man who denies what he has done is headed for sorrow. Both doers of evil are in the same state after death. Many, though wearing the saffron robe, are mean and undisciplined. Being that way, they are headed for sorrow. It is better for an immoral person to swallow a red-hot ball fully ablaze than to eat the food provided by pious people. 4 misfortunes befall the careless person who pursues others' wives: acquisition of demerit, disturbed sleep, and rebirth into a sorrowful state. Slight is the pleasure of the frightened man and woman. Severe consequences follow. Therefore, do not court another's wife. Just as a blade of cussa grass handled improperly cuts the hand, so does the life of a recluse handled improperly bring him to a sorrowful state. A deed done carelessly, a vow badly kept, the higher life led without integrity, all these yield poor results. If anything is undertaken, do it impeccably. Poorly led monastic life stirs up the dust of passions more widely. Better to avoid doing evil and not suffer the torment that follows. Better to do what is right and not suffer the regret. Just as a border town is protected within and without, so let one guard oneself and not let the opportunity pass. To neglect that opportunity is to invite suffering. Some are ashamed of what is not shameful, and shameless about what is shameful. Following such false views, they go to a sorrowful state. Some are fearful where there is nothing to fear, and are fearless when there is much to fear. Holding such false views, they go to a sorrowful state. Some see what is right as wrong, and what is wrong as right. Holding such false views, they go to a sorrowful state. Those who see wrong as wrong, and right as right, hold right views, and go to a joyful state. 23. The elephant. I shall bear harsh words, as the elephant in battle endures arrows, for I know that most people behave poorly. It is the tamed elephant that men lead into a crowd. A king mounts only a tamed elephant. The man who has tamed himself and patiently bears harsh words is also the best among men. The tamed mules are good. The well-bred horses of Sind are good. The mighty elephants are good. Best of all is the man who has tamed himself. One does not ride tamed animals to nirvana. Only the tamed person goes there on his well-tamed self. The elephant Dhanapalaka, in rut, his temples streaming, restless, bound. He does not eat his food at all, longing for the elephant forest. When one is sluggish, gluttonous, rolling about like a large pig stuffed with swill, one is reborn a simpleton again and again, continuously suffering. This mind once wandered restlessly wherever it chose, but now I hold it in check, as a trainer restrains the rutting elephant with the hook. Be vigilant. Protect your mind. Free yourself from the difficulty of an elephant sunk in quagmire. If a man finds a companion prudent, wise, upright, and righteous, let him go with him, happy but vigilant, overcoming all anger. If a man cannot find a companion prudent, wise, upright, and righteous, let him walk alone, like the king leaving the conquered land, or an elephant roaming by himself in the forest. It is better to live alone than to have a fool for a companion. Living alone, avoid evil ways of life. Be harmless, at ease, like the elephant in the forest. It is pleasant to have companions when you need them. It is pleasant to be satisfied with whatever comes your way. It is pleasant to know virtue at the moment of death. It is pleasant to be beyond all suffering. It is pleasant to be a loving child toward your mother. It is pleasant to be a loving child toward your father. It is pleasant to show proper respect to the recluse. It is pleasant to behave respectfully to holy beings. It is pleasant to reach old age as a morally good being. It is pleasant to be of unshakable faith. It is pleasant to achieve insight. It is pleasant to abstain from evil. (24) Craving. Unchecked craving strangles the careless man, like a creeper growing in the jungle. He leaps from lifetime to lifetime like a monkey seeking fruit. This craving, this clinging, overpowers the man caught in it, and his sorrows multiply, like prairie grass fed by rain. Although it is hard to gain this freedom, sorrow leaves the man who overcomes this toxic craving, this clinging to the world, just as drops of water fall from a lotus leaf. Therefore, I admonish you all who are here assembled. You have my blessings. Eradicate craving at the root as you would weeds. Find the sweet root. Do not succumb to temptation over and over again. The tree may be cut down, but the roots remain, uninjured and strong, and it springs up again. Likewise, suffering returns again and again if the dormant craving is not completely eradicated. A man will be swept along by the 36 streams of sensual pleasure, borne on the strong currents of his craving toward tempting objects. The streams of craving flow everywhere. The creeper of craving grows wild through the 6 sense doors. Being aware of the strangling vine, cut it off at the root through insight. Pleasurable sensations arise in living beings. The feelings are heightened by craving, and these beings cling to these sensations. Not letting go, they are compelled to experience suffering over and over again. Living beings, led by craving, rush about aimlessly like trapped rabbits. Caught up in their desires, they suffer over and over again. Living beings caught up by cravings rush about aimlessly like trapped rabbits. Therefore, monk, set aside craving and find freedom. Come and look at a man who has freed himself once, but goes back to his former life of bondage. There are bonds of iron, wood, or grass. These are wise and do not call strong. Far stronger are the bonds of possessions and family. Wise men recognize the real attachments that can drag them down, loose, but difficult to untie. When they master their bonds of craving, They free themselves from the bondage of the senses. Those who are lost to lust fall back into the self-made stream of craving, as a spider falls back into its self-spun web. The wise cut this off and proceed resolutely, leaving all ills behind. Let go of the past. Let go of the future. Let go of the present. Proceed to the opposite shore with a free mind, leaving behind all conditioned things. You shall no more fall into birth and decay. Craving grows in the man aroused by worldly thoughts. Tied to his senses, he makes his fetters strong. Taking delight in calming sensual thoughts, ever mindful, meditating on the impurities of the body and so on, one will certainly get rid of craving. Such a one will cut off Mara's bond. The diligent monk has reached the summit, fearless, free of passion. This is the final birth of such a man. Free of craving and grasping, skilled in the knowledge of the meanings within meanings, the significance of terms, the order of things. This great man, greatly wise, need return no more. I have conquered all. I know all. I am detached from all. I have renounced all. I am freed through destruction of craving. Having myself realized all, whom shall I call my teacher? The gift of truth is the highest gift. The taste of truth is the sweetest taste. The joy of truth is the greatest joy. The extinction of craving is the end of suffering. Possessions destroy the fool, but not those who see beyond them. Through craving for possessions, the fool destroys himself and others as well. Weeds choke the fields. Lust corrupts humankind. The gifts bestowed on those free from desire bring great rewards. Just as the fields are spoiled by weeds, so is humankind spoiled by ill will. There are, therefore, great rewards for those free of ill will. Weeds ruin fields. Ignorance ruins humankind. Gifts bestowed on those free from ignorance bring great rewards. Weeds ruin fields. Greediness ruins mankind. Gifts bestowed on those free of greediness bring great results. 25. The Bhikku. It is good to restrain the eye. It is good to restrain the ear. It is good to restrain the nose. It is good to restrain the tongue. It is good to restrain the body. It is good to restrain the mind. It is good to restrain thought. Restraint in all things is good. The Bhikku, with restraint in all things, will be free from suffering. He has controlled his hands and feet. He has controlled his speech. He is withal well controlled. He delights in insight development. He is calm. He lives alone and is contented. Him they call a Bhikku. How pleasant is the discourse of the monk, spare in his use of words, whose speech is restrained, who talks wisely, who is simple and clear in expressing the Dhamma. The monk who abides in the Dhamma, who delights in the Dhamma, who contemplates the Dhamma, will not fall away from the sublime Dhamma. One should not despise his own portion, not covet what others have. A monk who covets what others have does not achieve peace of mind. The gods praise the energetic monk who is content with his simple lot, living by pure means of livelihood. He who is not attached to this mind-body process and does not mourn their loss or decay, that one is called a true Bhikku. A monk who lives in loving kindness, devoted to the teachings of the Buddha, will realize nirvana, the tranquil, the unconditioned, the blissful. Empty this boat, O monk. Emptied, it will move lightly. Cut off lust and ill will, and you will reach nirvana. Cut off 5, the lower 5 fetters of self-delusion, doubt, attachment to rites and ceremonies, sensuality, and ill will. Remove another 5, the 5 higher fetters of desire for the realm of subtle body, desire for the bodiless realm, conceit, restlessness, and ignorance. And cultivate 5, confidence, mindfulness, effort, meditative absorption, and insight. A monk who has transcended the 5 bonds, passion, anger, ignorance, pride, and wrong views, is called one who has crossed the flood. Meditate, O monk, be not negligent. Do not allow your heart to whirl in the pleasures of senses. Do not swallow a flaming iron ball, and then as you burn cry out, "Oh, that hurts." Without reason, there is no concentration. Without concentration, there is no reason. Whoever has both, concentration of mind and reasoning power, approaches nirvana. A monk who enters a bare cell with serene mind, contemplating on the nature of things, will experience transcendent joy. Whenever he contemplates the rise and fall of the aggregates of existence, he becomes filled with joy and happiness. To the discerning, this is like deathlessness. This is the way for the wise bhikkhu to begin. Control the senses. Practice equanimity. Live by the disciplinary rules. Associate with good friends who are not lazy, who live purely. Be courteous and well-mannered, and thus, in fullness of joy, put an end to suffering. Just as the jasmine plant sheds its withered flowers, O monk, shed both lust and hatred. The monk who is peaceful in action, word, and thought, who is composed, having discarded the world's temptations, can be called the peaceful one. Admonish yourself strongly. Scrutinize yourself deeply. Thus alert and protected by your vigilance, you will live in happiness, O monk. Each one is his own refuge. Each one is his own shelter. Therefore, each one needs to train himself as a trainer does a thoroughbred horse. The monk, full of joy, delighted in the Buddha's teaching, attains the blissful state of serenity, tranquil, unconditioned, and calm. A monk, though still young, applying himself devotedly to Buddha's teaching, lights up this work, like the moon emerging from a cloud-filled sky. 26. The Noble One. Make headway against the current with your energy. Scrupulously avoid sensory delight, O Noble One. Knowing the cessation of conditioned things, be a knower of the uncreated. Whenever the Brahmin reaches the perfected state of concentration and insight, he frees himself from all his chains. I call him Noble One, who stands neither on this shore nor any shore, freed from all the chains of worry. I call him Noble One who is meditative, serene, free of lust, having completed what needs to be done, stainless, having achieved the highest good. The sun shines by day, the moon illuminates the night, the warrior gleams in his armor, but the Buddha shines in glory both day and night. Beyond unwholesome action, one is called a Noble One. Samana, a recluse, has found peace of mind. Pabhita, a holy man, has renounced all defilement. Never would a Noble One attack a Noble One, nor would a Noble One retaliate if attacked. Whoever attacks a noble one is disgraced. A noble one who retaliates is dishonored. What hard-won progress does the noble one earn in practicing restraint? His pains disappear as he practices harmlessness. Whoever keeps under control his body, his words, his thoughts, him do I call a noble one. If from someone a man learns the Dhamma taught by the Supremely Enlightened One, he should respectfully pay him homage, as a Brahmin worships the sacrificial fire. Neither by matted hair, nor by lineage, nor by birth does one become a noble one. He in whom is the realization of truth, who has attained to the holy stages, he is the real noble one. Of what avail is thy matted hair? Of what avail is thy antelope hide? Within you there is a forest of defilements. You deal only with outside. I call him noble one, who dressed in tatters, lean, with veins showing, sits alone in the forest meditating. I do not call him a noble one, merely because he is born of a Brahmin mother. If he is not free from impediments, he is only a supercilious one. I call a noble one only him who is free of worldly encumbrance, and who is not clinging to the world. Whoever has cut all chains, and does not tremble, whoever is beyond all bonds and attachments, him do I call a noble one. Him I call a noble one, who has cut off the strap of ill will, the ties of craving, the rope of error, who has lifted the bars of ignorance and perceived the path of truth. Whoever is free of anger, endures abuse, torture, imprisonment without anger, having infinite patience and forbearance, whose power and potent army is patience, him do I call a noble one. I call him a noble one who is free of anger, dutiful, virtuous, pure and tamed, who bears his last body. Whoever is as detached from pleasures of the senses as water dripping from a lotus leaf, or a mustard seed from a needlepoint, him do I call a noble one. Whoever experiences the end of his own suffering, even while here, who has let go of his burdens, who is unbound, him do I call a noble one. Whoever is rich in insight and wisdom, discerning both the right and wrong paths, having attained the highest good, him do I call a noble one. Whoever detaches himself, both from the householders and the homeless, having simple needs, no house to stay in, him do I call a noble one. Whoever withholds the rod from creatures both weak and strong, abstaining from killing or causing killing, him do I call a noble one. Whoever is friendly among the hostile, serene among those with weapons, detached among the clinging, him do I call a noble one. Whoever has freed himself from lust, anger, pride, and dishonesty, as a mustard seed drops from a needlepoint, him do I call a noble one. Whoever speaks gently, honestly, imparting knowledge, offending no one, him do I call a noble one. Whoever accepts nothing, long or short, small or large, expensive or cheap, unless it is freely given to him do I call a noble one. Whoever has no craving, either for this or another world, who is detached and unbound, him do I call a noble one. Whoever has no clinging, whoever has freed himself from doubt through awareness, who has embraced the infinite, him do I call a noble one. Whoever has gone beyond the desire for doing either good or evil, is free of sorrow, immaculate and pure, him do I call a noble one. Whoever is as free of blemishes as the spotless moon, serene and tranquil, all longing for existence gone, him do I call a noble one. Whoever has gone beyond his quagmire of rebirths, passed over this hard road of passion and delusion, and reached the other shore, who is meditative, secure, free from doubt, and completely emancipated, him do I call a noble one. Whoever has abandoned sensual pleasure, who moves about free from the bonds of household life, having put an end to craving and rebirth, him do I call a noble one. Whoever has rooted out desire, who moves freely from all household bonds, who has put an end to longing and rebirth, him do I call a noble one. Whoever is free from all bonds, having cast off earthly ties, having transcended heavenly ties, him do I call a noble one. Whoever has cast off delight and aversion, having removed the ground for rebirth, a man of great strength and courage, victor of all levels of existence. Whoever understands completely the passing away and rebirth of beings, who remains detached and acts nobly, him do I call a noble one. The one whose after-death destiny is unknown to gods, guardian spirits, or men, who is completely pure, the Holy One, him do I call a noble one. Whoever is beyond clinging, for past, present, or future, who possesses nothing, is released from the world. He is a seer, strong, resolute, heroic, beyond conflict, cleansed, enlightened. Him do I call a noble one. Whoever knows all his past lives, sees both the happy and unhappy realms, is free from rebirth, has achieved perfect insight, and has attained the summit of the higher life, him do I call a noble one.